What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is Mavri here with It Invaded again. So, we are on episode 10. This is the last third of the series, I believe. And so it's the last leg of this journey. So, how exactly is the story going to resolve itself? We got a lot of quite interesting stuff, more, I guess, more in the sci-fi realm again, from the last episode. Who exactly is this Asukai Kiki character? Is she actually telling the truth and whatnot? She definitely has a pretty interesting predicament that she's in. And also quite a sad one if true. But I don't know. I just have my sneaking suspicion about all this. My gut is telling me even if she is telling the truth, she might be being used unknowingly, right? And unbeknownst to both her and to Narihisago, who might be actually slowly getting corrupted the more that he is trying to solve this current mystery, right? I personally think that the sort of trap, if you will, that's being laid here by John Walker, whoever he is that as Narihisago continues to try and solve this mystery and whatnot, he's getting more and more violent. He's maybe losing the last remnants of his humanity, his ego, and going back to the raw desires, the id, if you will, of human characteristics. So maybe I'm just overthinking this, and it's nothing quite as deep as that. But I don't know. It's my best guess for now. So let's just get into the episode and see if that is more or less on the right track or not. All right, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Hmm. Really? I mean, I don't think it's quite the future. If what she says is true, then even then, it's just because you believe you're gonna do something doesn't necessarily mean that you will do it. You could also argue he's in a dream right now, right? Oh, he's starting to doubt reality. He thinks this is reality. So this is the trap, I guess. Inception all over again. Or Monkey hasn't had a chance to talk to him about why he knows.
今何してるんだ。
何って家族と過ごしてます。
家族サービスでそんなにやつれるやつがいるか。
嘘じゃないですよ。本当に家族と過ごしてるんです。できるだけ一緒に。
まあいい。怠慢の件はもう俺も聞かないし、長所も適当にごまかした。
あれは本当に勘ですよ。
それでいい。
アスカイさんのお見舞いですか。
ああ、お前もか。
はい。でも久しぶりです。彼女体調どうですか。
衰弱の一途だ。怠慢がもういないってのを分かってもらえれば。
まだいるんです。彼女の中に。
どうぞ。
Inside her.
お邪魔でしたか。いいえ。では続きはまた後日。
Is this the guy who made the, well?
すみません。お名前を伺ってもいいですか。白駒西尾と申します。
Yeah, it's him.
すいません。もう体を起こしてるのも辛くて。
構いませんよ。楽になさってください。潜伏場所に距離があったんで少し時間がかかりましたが、顔そぎに続いて下抜き、また先、腕もぎの3人をあなたの夢から排除しました。それぞれにそれぞれのやり方を選ばせました。どうやら他者への殺意がそのままの形で自らへ向かうようです。もしかしたら同じ手段で自分を死に至らしめることで本人の中で何かが完成するように感じられるのかもしれません。
Oh, so he basically only just got into their head?
3人それぞれに例の帽子とステッキの男について問いただしましたが、何の情報も得られませんでした。アスカイさん、そいつはあなたの夢に単独で現れたんですよね。
はい。
何か身元を探れる手がかりはありませんか。
いいえ。
Is it maybe
架空の人物だと思ってたんですね。
is John Walker maybe Narihisago?
あなたのその時の気分が俺の中に確認が取れました。
すみません。
その男は夢の中であなたをいたぶり、そうしてるうちに他の殺人鬼も夢に入ってくるようになり、夢の主であるあなたをおもちゃを共有するようにして繰り返し殺害した。
ごめんなさい。私にはどうしようもできなくて。
こんなのは平気です。でもあなたはとても平気どころではないですよね。一瞬の記憶でこうなのだから。やはり残りの一人、あのステッキの男を捕まえないと。あいつが元凶か。
いいえ。そもそも生きている限り夢は終わらないんです。私の中から殺人鬼が完全に排除されたとしても、私の記憶が形を少しずつ変えて、繰り返し私を殺すんです。私、暴力の世界の中で自分がなくなってきてるのがわかるんです。このままだと私というタガが外れそうで。
タガが外れる。
私じゃなくなるんです。それは肉体的な死じゃなくて、私というものが溶けて世界に溢れ出て混ざり合ってしまうような。
What?
なり方なんです。
何を言ってる。
それだけじゃありません。世界に溶け込むことで、きっと私は世界のあり方の方をねじ曲げてしまう。
ありえませんよ。
私は人間らしく終わりたいんです。以前よろしくお願いしますと申し上げたの、そういう意味です。
できませんよ、そんな。
私が残酷に死んでいくのを見殺しにするのと、私の苦しみを断ち切っていただくのとで選ぶことはできませんか。
できません。俺は警官なので。
では、私ではなく、この世界を救うために私というものを排除していただくことはできませんか。
You can't eliminate yourself?
そういう予知夢のようなものを見てるんです。私はもうすぐ壊れ、世界を歪めてしまう。だからその前に成久さん。
俺に
Oh. So this is
そのうち3人が目覚めてるが、彼女たちの証言によると、飛鳥井さんの病室に踏み込んだ順番に昏睡状態に陥ったらしい。目が覚めたら飛鳥井さんは消えていた。防犯カメラもなぜか不具合を起こしていて、詳細は不明。
whoa.
成久、お前飛鳥井さんのことで何か思い当たることはないか？
いえ、もうずっと一月以上顔も見てませんし。
飛鳥井さんの夢の話、お前は聞いてないか？彼女は悪夢ばかり見るみたいで、眠ることに怯えてただろう。
いえ、そんな話は特に。
そうか。夢の話がまだ続くんだが、意識を取り戻した看護師3人が奇妙な夢の話をしていて、その内容が3人とも一致してるんだ。まるで同じ夢を同時に見てたみたいに。
不思議な話ですが、状況を聞く限り飛鳥井さんが何らかの方法で看護師たちを混沌させて病院から抜け出した可能性もありそうですが。
2日前にも俺は飛鳥井さんの様子を見ている。意識も朦朧としていて、とてもそんなことができるとは思えない。
そうですか。じゃあ
I wonder why Narihisago doesn't trust Momoki.
大丈夫？
ああ、何も問題ない。世界が壊れる。飛鳥井さんの行方まだ追ってるんですか？
ああ、何の手がかりもないままだけどな。だが、どうやら彼女が何らかの能力の持ち主で、あの病院の研究対象になっていた気配がある。
研究対象？
夢を介在させた無意識への侵入だと。お前もあっただろう。
Chirikama.
職員の独自研究らしいが。
じゃあ
ところがそいつにはあの集団昏睡
Wait, doesn't Narihisago know about the maker of the Idwell?
接触はなかったようなんだ。彼女の衰弱の速度を考えると、今どんな状態なのか。どうした？
お客様だ。
手配中のやつでも見つけたか？
いいえ。アナーキー、お前を忘れてたよ。
動かないで。拳銃を地面に置いて、ゆっくりこっちに振り返りなさい。
お前、
成久明人、どうしてここに？成久さん、私本堂町って言います。蔵の外務分析官です。もしかしてあなたも井戸の中の井戸に入ったんですか？
Wait, what? Oh, okay. They never actually met before.
まさか。違う。ここは井戸の中の井戸なんかじゃない。
やっぱりあなたも坂井戸としてここに入ったんですね。
坂井戸なんて知らない。俺は成久明人だ。ここで生きてるんだ。生きてきたんだ。
何を？ここは井戸ですよ。過去の現実世界にそっくりですけど偽物ですよ。
違う。
成久さん、ここに来てからどれくらい経っていますか？
違う違う。やめてくれ。
その拳銃、今ひょっとして警察官ですか？
やめろと言ってるだろう。
じゃあ私の方の事実から。私、成久さんの井戸で見つけたコックピットからこの世界に来ました。20分ほど前の話。
20 minutes ago?
今日は何日だ
4月20日です。2019年の。成久さん、この世界に来てどのくらい経ちましたか？
The world is breaking apart.
この世界が
本来出会うはずのない私たちが出会ってしまった。その矛盾にこの井戸自体が耐えられなくなったの。
Oh.
もしもし、
俺だ綾子、今すぐ逃げろ。ムクはいるか？
いるよ。
今すぐムクを連れて逃げてくれ。
逃げるってどこに？どうしたの？誰？アキくん、なんか変なこと言ってる。成久さん。アキくん、今どこにいるの？
Answer? Right. Doesn't want to wake up from the stream. Yeah, they're both dead now. One beaten to death by the challenger, and one dead because of suicide. And he found her in the bathroom. Yeah, not really. Hmm.
この世界で1年以上も何をしてたんですか？
家族と暮らして仕事をしてた。警察官としての仕事と俺の個人的なものと、そうだ、ジョン・ウォーカーについて君に伝えなきゃいけないことがある。
桃木室長がそんな。
What?
真犯人を探すしかない。俺の肉体は砂漠の中に放置されてとっくに死んでいるだろう。でも君にはまだチャンスがある。桃木さんたちが必ず君を救い出
Oh yeah, she doesn't actually know about Momoki yet. Because she was in the well.
10分経過。やっとだよ。なんだと？どうして今さら？
成久さん、
本能町、これを。
これは
All his notes.
機関排出準備。
おかえり。で、この機械どうだった？
どうだったかな。何も覚えてない。
泣いてるの？
なんだろう。おい、なんだこれ。
暇だったからさ、砂を数えてたんだ。
変なやつ。時計泥棒なんていなかったんだな。これでカエルちゃんの手首と俺たちの手首がそれぞれ結ばれてたはずだ。どうしてほどいた？
さすがは名探偵。確かに観察は大事だね。僕も君を待つ10分間暇だったから、この周辺をいろいろ観察したよ。
答えるんだ、アナイド。これはカエルちゃんのそばから動くなというメッセージだ。
そのネタ初めてじゃないよね。
まあ聞きなよ。あの男についてもいろいろ見聞したんだ。僕たちのこともカエル君のことも殺しはしなかったものの、助けもしなかったあの男の胸のポケットには、こんなものが入っていた。
これはいつの間に写真なんて。
君にはこれが誰だかわからない。だよね、坂井戸君。でも僕にはわかる。覚えているんだよ。この世界に来る前のことを。思うに、井戸に入るときに自分自身を忘れさせるって機能が僕には働かないんじゃないかな。
What?
なぜなら僕は顔だけじゃなくて脳も少し削れている。
Because he.
だから君が忘れてしまったことも覚えている。君は下の名前がない坂井戸なんて名探偵じゃないんだ。君の名前は成久明人、元警官の殺人犯だよ。
遺体復元シミュレーション完了しました。成久の明人と一致します。
つまりアナイドは福田保としての意識や記憶を持ち込んだまま井戸に入ったの。
What?
私たちを騙して。排出急いで。
できません。二人との位相にズレが生じて排出。
But what's he trying to do though?
あの落雷の井戸と同じネタなんだ。カエルのそばから動くな。
悪いね。僕はここがどこかを知ってるんだ。あの頭に穴を開けた彼女を探しに行ったからね。
ここは桃木さんの井戸じゃない。成久の井戸の慣れの果てだ。自らの井戸の中で自分を思い出して自意識が無意識の侵略を始め、それから逃れようとする井戸が。
But why would he want to do that?
成久がドグマに落ちます。
これが井戸嵐。
ジョン・ウォーカー。
Alright, that was definitely an ending I did not see coming. Alright, I'm gonna go watch it again, see if I missed anything. See you guys in a second. Well, alrighty, that was episode 10, and I definitely did not see that sort of plot twist at the very end happening. I'm not really sure if it makes much logical sense, but we'll get to that in a moment here. So let's first talk a little bit about the concept, the entire concept that we went through for this episode, right? Essentially, it's Inception, right? The movie Inception. I've been talking about this through, I think, even from the very first episode, how this series reminds me a lot of Inception, and here I think there is there can't be a more clear sort of parallel or reference to that, right? The sort of dream within a dream, or in this case, it's an unconscious within an unconscious, a well within a well. You're blurring the lines between what's real and what's not, and then you find yourself being trapped within this fake reality, right? You can't come out of it, and in the case of Inception, you're eventually stuck in limbo. Not really sure if they will actually be stuck here in for Narihisago and company as well, but it's basically the similar concept to that, right? And obviously we can clearly see why he would have attachment to this particular world, especially with everything he's gone through. But okay, before we touch on that, I want to quickly talk a little bit about when Narihisago eventually learned about the truth and got out, right? Now, initially I was a little bit unimpressed with how they did that scene, because if this might be spoilers for anybody who hasn't watched Inception before, but the thing about Inception, when you wanted to get out of a dream, was that you needed to have a certain token, right? You needed to have something to remind you that this is not reality, this is fiction. In this case, it didn't really have something of that sort. You could argue that Hondo Machi is there, but what's going to be the difference between her and what Narihisago already knows, right? How are you able to convince? The thing about this sort of reality is it's so convincing that you think anybody else who's saying something otherwise is just crazy, right? Now, that's what I initially thought, but the more I thought about it, the more I think Narihisago knew from the very beginning, and he never forgot that this is just a fake reality. He's just, I guess you can even say, subconsciously choosing to suppress those thoughts, because if you think about it, it doesn't really make sense, right? Why would he be able to share these dreams or memories with Atsukai when he literally only learned about her after the Challenger, right? After he knew about the Challenger, right? There is a clear sequence of events here, so that doesn't really make sense how he would have been affected by Atsukai first, and then gradually knowing about all the other stuff, right? So if you really sat down and thought about it, he knows that doesn't make sense. In fact, I think he also specifically mentions in the episode that there are a lot of contradictions as well. He's just choosing to willingly ignore it, right? Of course, for the sake of being actually able to spend time with his wife and daughter here. So for that part, I think mostly it's a wash, right? I will give it a pass. Now, the very emotional part of this episode, right? The part where Narihisago breaks down and actually shows some emotion, some real emotions for once, and not just sort of suppressed emotions, suppressed rage. I'll be honest here, I feel like that scene was very touching indeed. The execution, however, could have been a lot better, right? And it really pains me, because that had... if they actually did it well, this would have been a great episode, an awesome episode, a 10 out of 10 episode, but I feel like they fumbled on it a little bit here. And the reason for this is twofold, right? Throughout the past episode and this episode, we don't really see much of Narihisago interacting with his wife and daughter, right? We're not really treated to, okay, this is a great life, he really wants to stay here, he's enjoying the company of his wife and daughter, so on and so forth. In fact, it seemed the literal opposite. It seemed like he was being much more preoccupied with actually trying to solve the case and getting rid of the serial killers than he was spending time with his family, right? Sure, we see some verbal mentioning of it, particularly with his dialogue with Momoki, but even then, I was thinking, hey, maybe I feel like that's more of a cover-up. He's actually using this time to go through all the different serial killers and so on and so forth, right? So you don't, it's kind of sudden that you suddenly get this sort of emotional break of Narihisago, considering that all we've seen up to now, and indeed in these last two episodes as well. So I would have much more preferred if they really showed Narihisago having a lot of interactions with his wife, with his daughter, maybe, and even if you didn't want to even if you didn't want to put it in the actual episode itself, maybe during the flashback scene, right? During the flashbacks, we see during the flashbacks his entire history with his, how he got married, how he met his wife, how he eventually got Muku, and so on and so forth, all the way leading up to their deaths, right? So it would have been even better, I feel like, if they sort of interlaced it with some stuff that he's been doing with them for this past year as well, right? That would really drive the things home. So there was a lack of execution on this part. Another thing that is maybe it could go either way is I feel like they sort of spoiled the way and the visuals of both Muku's and his wife's death a little too early, right? We already knew that Muku was beaten to a pulp and then died. We've seen that many episodes ago. We've seen since the last episode how his wife actually slit her wrist in a bathtub for suicide. Those are very shocking things, and I feel like the impact of them would be even a lot better during this entire sort of mental breakdown scene, right? It would have really driven home the fact, all the things that Narihisago has been suppressing up to now, and then unleash it all out at once. Now, you could argue that knowing it beforehand also helped us understand his emotional breakdown here as well, but I don't know. I feel like just for the impact of this scene, it might have been better to move it to here as well, particularly because in the previous scenes where we do see these flashbacks, we also see Narihisago sort of suppressing his emotions, right? He's not really reacting much to it because I guess that's just the way he copes with it, right? And different people cope with it different ways. He chooses to suppress the emotions that he feel or can get when he remembers the deaths of those two. I mean, think about it, right? That is really messed up. I mentioned this last episode as well. It's a really messed up way to lose both your wife and your daughter, right? However, it's just not during those scenes in the past. We didn't really see Narihisago do much about it, so it was just like, hey, it's kind of there, and it's over. So, anyways, don't get me wrong. It was still a very powerful scene in this episode as well, but it could have been easily been a 10 out of 10 scene. It's just if they really put a little bit more effort into it, I guess you could say. So I really feel like that was one big missed opportunity to really drive home the fact and make this into a god tier episode, right? But yeah, and hopefully I don't come across as too too nitpicky or whatnot, but whenever I see these sort of opportunities and they're squandered, I'm always like, that it's too bad that they weren't able to really put it up to a next level, right? So yeah, that's my thought on that scene, but definitely very relatable, and you can get, it's not easy feeling sympathetic for anime characters, I'll be honest, especially at my age and with watching so many anime and manga works. But this one did touch me, right? Especially because how the gruesomeness of what happened, and he's just lived a sad life, right? Narihisago. He's in a very bad state, and it's absolutely no surprise that he went mental and started killing people. Let's just say. Alright, so putting that out of the way, what did we learn about this story so far, right? Well, honestly, I have no clue, right? This thing with Fukuda at the very end there really came out of nowhere, right? The fact that he's able to retain his memories from reality, and the fact that he's suddenly choosing to, at that time, reveal that this idwell was actually Narihisago's and not Momoki's, right? And even that in itself is very puzzling. Like, how in the world can that happen? We clearly see that this well was constructed by the cognitive particles taken from Momoki's home, right? So how in the world did Narihisago's cognitive particles get transferred to Momoki's house, right? Is that something possible? Is that also a plant by the person who's trying to frame Momoki, right? Is that how it goes? there's lots of question marks here, right? Like how exactly can that happen? And how were they able to sort of disguise it until the very end when suddenly they discover it was actually Narihisago's will, right? Um, and I also find it kind of weird that they never mentioned the fact about Fukuda being awake 10 minutes earlier and actually doing some investigative work on his own before Nahisago awakened in his Sakaido form, right? Like literally the other people outside the well are monitoring them. I think they also can see through their eyes as well. So how come nobody picked up on this fact that there was something funny about the situation with Fukuda, right? So that doesn't really make sense either. But okay, fine, we'll leave it at that. But I don't know. I really have no clue as to how this story is actually going to continue forwards. I still am not 100% convinced that Atsukai is just the victim here. Although, with the feel and tone of this episode, it seems that she is. And perhaps, the biggest culprit would be the doctor that created this idwill and the cognitive particles and all this other high-tech machinery and whatnot. But, I mean, I do hope that it's not going to turn into something where the end culprit is someone who we completely don't know about and is going to be an entirely new character in the last few episodes, right? I feel like those types of ultimate antagonists don't really fit detective stories or mystery stories all that well. It works much better if you suddenly see that, hey, the person that we were looking for was right beside us all along, right? That makes it much more epic. But well, we shall see. We shall see. At the very least, it is a very interesting story, right? Now, hopefully, it will be logically consistent in everything that it does. It's doing a good job of it so far, right? No big errors and whatnot, but it's super easy to mess up the conclusion of an anime, as I'm sure that most of you guys would all know about as well. So anyways, those are my thoughts for episode 10 of It Invaded. Pretty good episode. Could have been an even greater episode, but it is what it is. So anyways, I'll see you guys next week as well. Bye-bye.